I guess Christie's given us the cue to get started, so we will. Item one on our, oh, sorry, this is the commission work session for Weaver County. Commissioner Sharon Bolos, I'm here with Commissioner Gage Brewer and Commissioner Jim Harvey. We're also joined by Ricky Hatch and Scott Park and Jessica Clark. Item one on our agenda, presentation of the 2024 calendar year audit. Scott?
And I'll actually let Kyle start if that's okay.
Great, welcome.
Sounds good. Thank you. I think most of you know me. I think I only met with the audit committee last year. So if not, Kyle Green with Squire and Company, second year, being able to work with you guys, and we appreciate the relationship and what your team has done to help us through these audits. So if it's okay, I'm going to share. Hopefully I have rights to do that. Looks like I do. So I'm going to pull up the financial report. So this is your ACFR. And of all 172 pages, these are just the 3 pages that are ours. So I'm just going to go over this really quick and then move to some compliance reports. But as an audit firm, so we come in and perform an audit and ultimately get to issue an opinion on the audit. That's kind of our responsibility here. And so right at the front of our report is our opinions paragraph that says, hey, we've audited Weber County as a whole. So all your governmental activities, business types, component units, all of that, all of those items there. And in the second paragraph, we've issued what's called an unqualified opinion. So in our opinion, or unmodified, the basic financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. So the work that we've done, all of the confirmations, testing of invoices, and looking at all the support, we're ultimately able to issue a clean opinion. Okay. And so when I say unmodified, that's a clean opinion. That's as high of an opinion as we can give as an audit firm. There is one item just wanted to point out here in our letter as well, and we will get to this, but this emphasis of matter. So the financial statements have been restated in 2024. There's 2 different matters. One was a new GASB implementation, and one was a restatement of a special assessment that we dealt with in 2023. But we'll go through those more, and either Ricky or Scott might have some comments on those as well. So that's our report for the financial statements, and then I'm just going to move again to compliance here, if that's all right. So this is our compliance report that is issued with government auditing standards. And so in here is where we do some of our internal controls and talk about internal controls. So this year, again, like I just had kind of talked about, there was at least one restatement that was not due to an implementation of a standard. So we did identify one deficiency in internal controls related to that restatement on your special assessment. Okay. So that talks about it here, at least that we identified that. I'm going to go forward. This is our report on federal programs and on your CFA. Clean opinions, nothing to note there on federal compliance. Everything looked good there. Okay. I'm just going to keep going forward. Please interrupt if you do have questions or if I'm going too quick or anything that way. But for your information, for your federal programs, we looked at the housing voucher cluster, and then there's still coronavirus money being spent at the county. And so we looked at those 2 programs when we say there was a clean opinion on federal programs. Okay. This is where the finding comes in that we have. And again, it's related to a liability and how the special assessment. Maybe Scott, I don't know if you want to address that and how you're getting and how you want to describe that to the board. I don't want to use, but to the board or to the council, I'll say there's varying levels of findings and ones that, I think you should be concerned about. This is one that got cleaned up. Last year we got really close. We just made some tweaks to it again. This isn't something, in my opinion, as I look on, as an auditor, that should, necessarily cause concern or keep you up. It's not an ongoing issue that needs to be resolved. This is a one-time, we fixed it and should be done type of an issue. That would be my opinion on it. But we have the language here if we want to go through that. Scott, is that something or Ricky, is that something you guys want to address right now, or do you want me to keep going?
I can talk about it right now if that's okay. So you guys remember back in 2013, this was even before I started, we issued a special assessment bond to do some work up at Powder Mountain. It was kind of funny because when Kyle and his firm came in, they went back and they looked at all of our previous bond issues and they noticed that it hadn't been issued correctly in 2013, and our previous auditor had signed off on it all the way through, to when I started to when the new guys came in. So I wasn't really going back and looking at the previous auditing issues. So last year they proposed an entry and said, hey, actually, you need to reclassify this and show a different way to record it. So we did that. One thing that we didn't do last year is the developer's required to pay $6,000 for every building permit that they get, but I think it was after 50 to 150 or something like that. I can't remember.
Yep.
The developer gets that money back, it doesn't go to the bondholders. It goes back to the developer when it's done. When we initially recorded this correction last year, we thought it was a reserve fund like any other reserve fund, which was used to help pay down the principal of the debt. So what we did is when we received that $6,000, we recorded it basically as I've got money now to pay the debt. But since I need to give it back to the developer, I should have been recording it as a deposit due to developer as soon as the debt's paid off. And so that's what this entry is here. That's why it was an unrecorded liability, because we were saying, well, I'm getting $6,000 per building permit to help me pay off the debt. I wasn't. I was getting $6,000 per building permit to hold and then give back to the developer when the developer pays off the bond. So you think about it, the homeowners are responsible for the special assessment bond. Then they're also paying $6,000 for this additional debt service reserve that they don't get back. It doesn't go credited to them. It goes back to the developer.
Wow.
So we didn't realize that when we did the recording of the entry last year. It was when we were digging into it this year, is looking at that and saying, well, wait a second, this actually goes back to not to the homeowner, not to pay down the bond payment. This goes back to the developer's pocket. So, right or wrong, whether it was a good idea to write the agreement that way, that's the way the agreement was written. And so we're recording it that way. That's why there was that unrecorded liability, because all that money I had, I was saying, oh, I'm going to use it for the debt. I should have said, I'm going to give it back to the developer.
Mhm.
That's the entry that we put, as we said, okay, we're giving it back to the developer now.
That's news to me. When I
Yeah.
talked to John Bond about it, I was under the assumption that 6,000 would be credited against the bond payment and or future interest. It's not.
That was my understanding as well, which is why we recorded it the way we did. But when we actually drilled into the bond documents this year, and it was a related question on the interest, but we were solving, okay, what do you do with the interest? Yeah, that goes back to the developer. We just said the next paragraph down is like, oh, shoot, the $6,000 isn't going back, it's going to the developer as well. So that's where we made that mistake. That's why we fixed it.
Can we change the code in the county or the process in the county?
I don't think there's anything to change. It's a agreement with the bondholder, so I don't think there's anything we can do about it at this point. It was written into the bond documents when we sold the bond, so we've got to comply with that. Going forward, I don't think we would ever do that again.
Mhm.
I don't know why. Yeah,
It's, all we've done is just create a slush fund for the developer
yep,
on the backs of the homeowner.
yep,
And it's about $1 million.
yeah,
Right.
1,000,005, I think is what it is.
Wow.
Yep, so.
Every day.
So, in terms of controls over financial reporting, we do a really good job. I think we do a really good job at making sure our controls are in place and everything like that. This was an issue that we weren't even aware of. It happened before I came in. We fixed it. We thought we fixed it. We didn't fix it right. And so I'll take responsibility for that. We didn't fix it right, but it was fixed. And we restated the beginning fund balance to show that, hey, this actually was a liability all along. We shouldn't have ever said it. I don't think it's significant. It's not going to change anybody's opinion on the county. It's $1.5 million out of, we're a $280 million entity, but it was something we did wrong and now it's fixed. So
I'm not sure John Bond understood it that way.
I don't think anyone did.
I don't think he did. I never had that every conversation I had with John, which I
Doesn't
should,
sound likely.
yeah.
No, no,
We
I,
would have bucked.
that's not how he explained it to me, so I'm sure he didn't understand that.
Yeah, and had we known, we would have definitely
Wow.
reported it right, cause I mean, it's no big deal to record it right, but we thought that
Yeah.
it paid the debt. It
Well, you
didn't.
would think that's kind of logical.
Well, that's what a debt service reserve does, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, okay,
Okay,
so that was the issue.
well, that's news
Awesome,
to
thanks, Scott. I just knew you'd probably be able to know what your council there wants to hear and know. So yeah, that was the finding. Any further questions there as it relates to that?
I don't think so.
Okay, sounds good. The last report of ours is on state compliance. So annually, we have to perform also a state compliance audit. These items that are indented here on your screen, starting with budgetary compliance down to impact fees, are the areas that we tested this year. And you can see in our that next paragraph down where it starts, in our opinion, we believe the county again has complied in all material respects with these requirements. And so issuing a clean opinion. We do have just what we refer to as an other matter. So we didn't raise it to any level of significance in changing our opinion or anything that way, but did note when we were testing government fees that there were 3 instances where the fees exceeded what was been approved. And so there were ultimately 3 fees that we saw that were charged incorrectly. And so just a recommendation to make sure that all those fees are following your approved rates, formulas. And I know that trickles down into departments in different levels within Weber County than necessarily at this group level. But just noted that and wanted to pass that along as well as something that we saw and something that can be improved upon. But again, didn't raise anything to a level of significance to change an opinion.
And if I could jump in on this one, Kyle, this
Go
was
ahead.
the building. If you remember, we had the spreadsheet that if you're a $0 to $500,000 house, you use this tab. If you're at 500,000 to $1 million, you use this tab. And our building inspection technician was using the wrong tab.
Oh,
So we were overcharging rates. We actually went back and we looked, I think they did a sample, they found 3. We went back and looked at every single building permit. And in total, we found 11 and we refunded back all those fees that we had overcharged. But we worked with building inspection to make sure that, improve that. But it was simply that the technician was using tab 1 instead of tab 2, or I guess the other way around, using tab 2 instead of tab 1 to calculate the fees.
good catch.
That's actually really good. I'm glad to know that cost us a little bit, but that's the honest thing to do.
Yeah, and we shouldn't have charged the fees. Had we done it right, we wouldn't have had that money anyway, so.
We would have had the fees on the other one. Would have had the fees on the other side, but it's okay.
11 doesn't sound like that many
Uh,
to have been done in error, is it?
the error rate should be 0. Like, and if I'm building a house, I don't wanna pay
Sure.
$10,000 more, $2,000 more, so the error rate should be 0. It was a simple mistake. We're already working with Stan and we're replacing that program with the new software, so I think that we're not gonna have to worry about it again. But the risk is always there, like if somebody's supposed to be charging $5 and they charge 6, we're supposed to be
Mhm.
following the fee ordinance, so.
Yeah, I'm just talking about finding out that there were some misclassified ones. And for there only to be 11 to correct seems not that big of a
Well,
deal.
good, I'm glad. I'll go with that it's
I
not that
mean,
big of a deal. I want the error to be 0. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
the error should be 0 and we've corrected. I'm just saying
Yeah.
11 to correct doesn't seem like that many for a catch. I don't know. I don't know.
Good catch.
Good catch.
Yep,
It's a good
yep.
catch.
As we looked at it though, we came to that same assessment again. When for our sample of 3 even, it was, anyway, we felt that we didn't need to raise the flag too much, but just wanted to alert you.
Yeah.
And again, we alerted your team there and they've made those corrections as Scott mentioned, so. So
Okay.
those are our reports that we have, and again, any findings or issues that we had. Like I said, the other restatement, I don't know if you want to go into detail, but GASB, the standard setters had a new standard related to compensated absences, but oh, that one didn't impact you, huh, Scott? Sorry, I apologize.
Yeah, no,
There is a new standard, but that one had minimal impact, so that one didn't get restated. but just so you're aware,
And
Jeff,
Gatsby.
there's that new standard there.
Gatsby and their gas act, they're just
Yep.
out of control.
Yep. I apologize. I probably got into robot moment there just because that's impacted some, but. All right,
Kyle,
so
I don't
that's
know
what I
if you
have
do
for you
this.
guys. If there's any questions of me or of what I went over here.
Yeah, Kyle, I don't know if you knew this or not, but Gatsby is currently doing a research project, a multi-year research project on revenue recognition and expense recognition. And they've appointed a special task force to deal with that. And that's through the Gas Act, the Advisory Council. And that's probably maybe 20 people on that advisory council. One of them is Scott Park. They asked him to sit on that committee, and it's riveting stuff, I tell you.
For nerds like us, it is.
So if you want
That's
to
awesome. I didn't know that,
outsize your
Scott.
influence on the Gatsby, make sure you talk to Scott.
Hey, that's fantastic. I didn't know that. Yeah, I am aware of that project. I think it's 2027 that they're hoping to issue a final statement on that, but didn't know.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yep. Awesome.
Okay. No other questions?
Other
Kyle?
questions?
None for me.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
thank you. Appreciate the
Awesome.
report.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle.
Okay.
Congratulations and good job.
I will say, I really appreciate this audit firm. It's next level. The cost was a little higher, but it's next level in terms of, I feel like if I were to make a mistake, they would find it, whereas before I felt like if I made a mistake, no one would catch it. Does that make sense? So I feel much more comfortable with these guys, looking back at a bond issue from 2013, I guess
Right.
I just, in my mind, is like, well, we got a clean opinion in 2013. No need to go back and look at it. Let's just move forward. So I really appreciate how thorough they are.
That catch was worth the extra money we paid them.
Mhm.
Love it.
So
Okay,
anyway,
all
okay,
right, thank you.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, our next item, there are probably people out there waiting, so we
Okay,
can
send 'em
let
in.
if you'd like. Our next item is a closed session to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property. Entertain a motion to leave the public meeting and enter to a closed session.
So move.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. We're in a closed session.
You.
make a motion to leave, so that's on the record, so, okay, ready for a motion.
Motion to come out of closed session, go back into work session.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, we are on. Liam, if you don't mind letting them in. Item 3, our discussion regarding Bennett Development Agreement and Rezone. Welcome, sorry, we're a few minutes behind.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Jeff.
Good afternoon.
Wow, we got all sorts of people here again.
All right, we have on our agenda Charlie Ewert, Liam Keto, Gary Myers, Rick Rover, Tammy Adelot, Tucker Waite, Ashley Tolman, Chad Meyer.
Hey, Liam, did I get you on this
Nope.
invite?
Okay.
You did. Thank you, Charlie.
Okay, Charlie,
One second.
you're listed first.
Madam Chair, thank you very much. We're here to talk a little bit about the Bennett Master Plan Development. You guys have had some good discussions with us and with the developer, had a good work session last time around, a couple weeks ago. What I have in front of you is the development agreement. It's the one document we didn't look at in our last discussion. There are a few points I wanted to make sure we recapped on from our last discussion, and then I just kind of wanted to highlight a few spots in the development agreement that you guys may have questions about or ways that we've resolved some of the concerns that you brought up. First thing that I wanted to discuss with you guys is Commissioner Harvey mentioned a little bit about the desire to have a open space buffer that circumnavigates the project. And one of the things that we wanted to make sure was pretty clear, and we discussed this with Commissioner Harvey, is we want to make sure this development integrates well into the other properties and future development that is there. One of the things that was really great about the Norton Commons project was it did have that open space buffer all the way around it. Also had highways all the way around it, where this one only has 4700 West, and they don't own all of the property there. So,
4700 and 12th Street,
and part of 12th Street. Yep.
and they're not gonna own the river.
No, that'll go to the park district. So we'll make sure we have that green space along the riverway. But I was talking to Commissioner Harvey, tell me if you still like this idea. Talking to Commissioner Harvey about maybe in the development agreement saying, if there is development that is happening on the next property over, then the buffer won't be required. But if there isn't development happening on the next property over, then we'll have a buffer, 100 feet or something like that. That will ensure that you got that open space buffer wrapping around the property, but as soon as the next property over rezones to some type of zone and starts to develop, then the applicant can come back in and fill that gap in with development. Is that a reasonable outcome for the request? Does that make sense? Do I need to go into detail on it?
Well, so what if they buy it?
The neighbors,
Next-
or
Yeah, the next property over.
if they buy the green space, then they'd be able to.
Yeah,
To
but that
build
would
it or leave
trigger
it.
it to know, you know what I mean?
Thank you.
I really want the 4700 people are going along there to say, man, look at that beautiful buffer that's there. That means we've arrived in this is a great
Yeah.
place to, oh, and there's a river in the back of it, you
Yeah,
know?
Yeah.
Really kind of sets it apart.
I agree. I think that.
This is the 132 foot right here.
Yeah, so we had, remember in the work session, we had Mike and his team zoom in on one of the areas off of 4700 on what that entrance would actually be, and we put in the right of way, and we showed what that entrance would look like, so. That's an example of one of the entrances.
I do like the idea of somewhere along 4700 having monument markers or something. I mean, here in Ogden, you got the Ogden Arch that goes over 12th Street that tells you you're going into downtown Ogden. Placemaking, I think, in that respect is pretty important. I think that needs to be a broader community initiative to do, especially because these guys only own a segment of 4700 and a segment of couple segments of 12th Street and a couple segments of 4700. As soon as, or if these guys start picking up more properties along 4700, that conversation can shift pretty quickly into ways to create placemaking and gateways and all that.
I think as soon as this thing gets approved, sorry, may I continue? As soon as this thing gets approved, then everybody's gonna be, just like we've seen everywhere else.
Yep.
Everybody's gonna say, well, now we can do da 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 da. And so let's make it a nice 4,700, a nice thing. What I don't want it to turn in, is going down Harrison Boulevard in the year 2100, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
It looks the same and houses are right out on the road.
Yep.
I was gonna get out and measure Harrison Boulevard the other day, but that's not what I imagine out there. I'd like to see it.
Do it in the middle of the
I'd
night.
like to see what you showed me,
Yeah.
which was a really nice, wide, was a nice wide highway type street, like a Harrison Boulevard kind of a thing. And then there was that great little pocket park kind of a thing at the entrance with still other green space going down there.
Yeah.
The good and the bad of taking the tour, right? Putting your feet on the ground, but the belly can't yearn for what the eye can't see. And now I've seen it, so now I'm yearning. Does that make sense?
One of the things that I think will hit that desire, Commissioner Harvey, is we do have ordinances that say that if it's an arterial or a collector street, we're gonna do everything we can to prohibit driveway accesses. So even if you did have front doors
Mhm.
facing it, you wouldn't have driveways, you wouldn't have people turning off. It would be incrementally in streets that go off and behind rather than multiple driveways. So
Well, that's kind of what
Create that green space.
that other deal was there.
Mhm.
They had the buffer and then they had a little pocket park, then there was a little street with the front door and the garages were in the back.
Yep.
It was really a night, you know, of course, over time, the maturity of the trees and everything, it was a great place to go out. And if you're getting this kind of density, you need a place to walk your dog.
Yep.
That's all there is to it, and not along where the cars are going zoomed right along in there with all the street lined highway.
Yep.
Another little place. So I realize that's a big ask. But I think what it does is it define the neighborhood. And I'm not talking about along 12th Street. Cause that's gonna be more of a commercial corridor at sea, the way we've got that. As much as it's been defined as an east-west, big deal. And you know, the
Yeah.
Legacy Highway could be, or whatever it is, so the West Weaver corridor could eventually be somewhere out there. But I think for that road, 4,700, the way it is there, I think it makes it a little nicer.
some green buffer. Okay. Okay, next item, we talked a little bit about the 100-foot river corridor. I think Commissioner Harvey, this was your concern as well, concern about the outside river turns. One of the things that is in this document, and I can guide your attention to it if you want to read it, is the requirement, any kind of development within 300 feet has to go through a qualified professional to determine what the best outcomes for that river is. That qualified professional might say on these outside turns, there needs to be more space than the required 100-foot. Maybe it is a 300 feet open space corridor that's needed to protect the curves. When that qualified professional does their work, our engineer will review it, make sure that it meets safety and flood challenges standards. And so I think that those are going to be resolved, and the applicant will be required, the developer will be required to provide whatever bank stabilization is going to be needed to make that safe.
I have a question then, Commissioner Harvey. So when you talk about open space corridor, is that public open space or just unbuildable land for the property owner?
That's open space corridor for the riverway, you
The
mean?
river.
That is gonna be public open space. So the 100-foot is gonna be, for the most part, for most of that, it's gonna be dedicated to the park district, 100 feet from the high water line of the river. The 300-foot buffer, that extra 200-foot
Mhm.
difference, that'll be private area, but
It'll look like open space.
it will.
That's what I'm at.
Potentially. Now, if the consultant comes back and says it's actually really safe, it's a good idea to actually put some homes right in here and not right over here, you might still see some homes within that 300-foot buffer. But you'll see that compensated for in other places where that consultant says it's not safe to build
Mhm.
homes over here. So it won't be a consistent 300-foot distance of open space. It will be a consistent 100-foot different distance of open space, and then the others will be kind of variable based off of the.
So the variable will be on the burden of that individual lot owner, whether or not they can
It'll actually be the variable will be based on the consultant that the applicant hires to determine, we actually have some standards in here that they'll go through and check boxes on.
Okay, may I rephrase that? So the burden of the upkeep,
Oh,
if I have a lot that has this tremendous amount of open space that
Gotcha.
belongs to me, right, and the park district owns that 100-foot-ish
mhm.
near the river. I just wanna make sure that's maintained and that it looks nice for those who are using that river.
Yep.
Um,
So that'll
open
be.
space.
That'll be an HOA cost, HOA maintenance cost, or a landowner cost. So if the landowner owns a front yard or a backyard that's right there, they'll have to maintain that. Chances are you'll see a lot of that in green space that the HOA maintains. If the developer wants to, they can dedicate more of that area to the park district as well. So maybe there is a 200-foot stretch that they'd rather see the park district have, own, operate, maintain. Maybe the park district wants some fields or something like
If
that.
the park district wants it, right,
If they-
that, they should be the ones to say, because they don't want pieces they don't wanna maintain either, so.
Yep, that's right. And that's how it's written.
So that was, I had three things. That was one of them, and that's great. Thank you.
Okay.
Second thing is. You talk about a qualified professional. I'd just assume we get somebody with all due respect, like an Andrew, or somebody that knows the family, has been out there for 1,000 years. Sorry, Andrew, maybe 200 years. And they know that property better than any qualified professional that you can hire in from anywhere else. Those guys up there know the lay of the land. I trust those guys more than I trust a guy with some kind of initials behind their name.
Okay.
With all due respect, AIA or IAI, whatever it is. That's the second thing. First, one other thing to put kind of a little explanation point. This highlights this perfectly. If we're going from 300 to 100 feet along that river, asking for little pocket parks and a little wide roadway on that frontage on 4,700 ought to be nothing. Or maybe we go back to 300 along the whole river. See what I'm saying? So that's kind of my thought there. There's a lot more linear feet along the river than there is just going along 4,700.
Okay, let me make a note right here in the development agreement. Provisions, there we go.
I realize a farmer that's been out there for many generations doesn't have those initials and doesn't have a liability and everything else, but they know the land better than anybody.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay, the development agreement has been updated to address stormwater challenges, putting the substantial burden that wouldn't otherwise be something that we would do on the HOA for operations and maintenance, especially of the aesthetics of those stormwater areas. Development agreement also requires them to do a stormwater master plan, and that stormwater master plan will allow them to kind of determine, are they going to consolidate the basin, the water basins? Are they going to have multiple smaller basins? How exactly should this work? And through that stormwater master plan, county engineer has a lot of influence to help shape that as well. The master plan is intended to not just identify how many basins and where they're gonna be, at least general location, but also who's gonna operate and maintain those as well. So that'll come down the pike a little bit. We don't have to agree on.
Who submits that plan, Charlie?
That'll be the applicant, it'll be the master developer.
So they'll have their engineer and then be reviewed by Gary?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep, that's how the agreement is written there.
okay.
Okay. Okay, we asked, you guys asked a little bit about the legacy corridor. We spoke with each of you guys about where that possible alignment is gonna be for this project to work. I think the master developer's been pretty clear with us that they can't have a freeway going through the middle of their project for it to be the project that they would like it to be. So I think they're hoping for warm fuzzies, that we're not gonna push UDOT to put the freeway right through the middle of their property, knowing that Transportation Commission, UDOT, they're gonna do what they're gonna do, but I think they're just looking for some influence. Do you guys have any additional concerns or updates that you'd like?
I have an update for you. So just last week, we received confirmation from WFRC that they would be sponsoring Weber County to work with UDOT to do an update of the 2009 study. So that's coming, that's gonna be starting pretty quickly. We're putting that meeting together with that task force to get that study up and going, hopefully by fall.
Great. With that study, will we have the ability to provide influence and pressure on our preferred alignment?
Absolutely.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be the one that we put on the plan, but we definitely want to make sure the big projects that are coming in, that one dependent on the freeway, the other one dependent on it not being there.
I think that the consensus, at least from my perspective of the three of us, is that 4,700, which I believe was the preferred route, right? In the
Fif-
2009?
5100 west, it was between 51 and 47.
Yeah, I
where the
think that all of
preferred
us feel like it should go further west at this point, just because of the growth out there, and those two corridors are a little too close to I-15.
Yeah.
So I think we're supportive of that.
Yeah, I mean, we can't make any promises, but it makes no sense to put it on 47 or it has to go west. And just looking at your little red map the other day.
Yeah.
It won't take long for me to convince Carlos that, again, the reason for that, it's called cash.
Yep.
It's called easier,
What you have to buy.
what you have to buy.
Right.
Well, buy and tear down. and-
Yeah, buy and tear down.
Right.
So that's why I'm pushing it so hard, is I wanna get it done
Yeah.
before the next developer comes to Tammy and says, I wanna put it here. I don't wanna tear any more more homes than we have to. I went through that with Davis County and
Yep.
yeah, it's a shame the amount of money that
Mhm.
the state spent on tearing very expensive homes down, by the way.
Yep.
On both 89 and Legacy.
Mhm.
Less than a year old.
Yeah,
Some of
so, if we have anything to say about it, I think we're all in consensus. We wanna save the state money. We also want to be fair to any developers that come into this county. So we don't lead them down a path where, you're gonna put major dollars in and then your value's destroyed.
Yep.
So,
Great. Okay, we talked a little bit about spot zoning. One thing that I do need to bring to you guys in our next discussion, whether that's in the commission chambers or not, is a good explanation of what the developer's request is in the context of the updated version of the general plan. I would say existing, but it hasn't been implemented yet, and it's written in a way where it won't be implemented unless these guys get their rezone. So I'll put that into context. Commissioner Harvey, you had asked that we give a little bit of a synopsis on the process of that update, both in terms of the general plan update as well as in terms of the rezone update. How much opportunity has the public had?
At the
to be
beginning
involved?
of the
At the
presentation.
beginning of the presentation. Yep. So I got that. Okay. As far as the project itself goes, the development agreement that you guys have in front of you, it's been a long, I'd say long, hard fought battle. We had one planning commissioner decide to quit over it. Just kidding. He didn't.
I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, he's next. But the way that the state law was changed a few years ago basically says any kind of legislative action being done through a development agreement has to go through the same legislative process that any other legislative action would. So that means the planning commission has to review it. There are a wide variety of opinions because the courts haven't been super clear on how this works. A wide variety of opinions on what it means for the planning commission to review. We've got some developers that are saying they should review pretty much the final development agreement. We've got other developers, attorneys saying just give them the principles. All they need to know are what the principles are. The county commissioners are the ones to negotiate the final product. What you guys have in front of you is probably a 98%, 99% product. It's pretty well vetted. There are a couple of little things that I wanted to touch on with you guys that the applicant's attorney has set aside to be discussed. I gotta find my highlights. Okay. The one.
What page are you on, Charlie?
Oh, sorry, page 20, section 8.8.3. We've got a little bit of discussion with you guys on other projects and for other subjects about secondary water systems. And how it would be really nice if we didn't have a whole bunch of separate secondary water systems out there, separate from the culinary water. There's a lot of suspicion that the construction, operations, maintenance, ownership of a secondary water system far outweighs the cost of just supplying irrigation water with the culinary system, treated water. I think Weaver Basin Water Conservancy District has been pretty clear with us that they would love it if we could see a lot less secondary systems in the western Weaver area. The way that our code is written basically says that if the culinary water provider requires a secondary system, operational secondary system to exist before they'll supply the water, then it has to exist. These guys with this provision here are asking to be exempted from that portion of the code. I don't know that us exempting them through a development agreement necessarily negates what the water district requires. If they want Taylor West Weaver to provide water service to their project, and Taylor West Weaver says you have to have secondary access to secondary water, whether or not we say you need to do that is probably a little irrelevant. Our ordinance says what it says, just as additional backup to that culinary water system. I know we can chat with the applicant a little bit about their thoughts on this, but right now the Taylor West Weaver has been looking to Hooper Irrigation to provide their secondary water service. And if you guys want to give a little commentary, a little fill in on why that's important to you guys to maybe
Yeah,
not
I
have that.
think the only reason we put this in here is, we know we need secondary water. We thought there were two different options for that. We don't know which one, we've talked to some of the water districts, culinary districts that don't have secondary water that are interested in potentially having that option. And I think what the only reason we put this in here, Charlie, is it mandates us using Hooper, and we just want an optionality, what's best for the project. That makes sense.
Is there any thoughts on that?
Well, I
Concerns?
can speak for Weaver Basin on this, been discussed, yeah, if Weaver Basin to taking a position, we'd encourage every development to use culinary water whenever possible instead of secondary because of the expense. Basically, let's be honest, it comes from the same source. All it is refinement. So from a cost standpoint, it's a lot more effective for water delivery. It's a lot more cost effective for developers. And especially with this type of development where you're not talking acre, 5 acre lots.
Right.
All right, this is the Weaver County in the past. But this doesn't make any difference because it's still gonna be up to the culinary provider.
Yep.
Weaver Basin will be putting pressure, by the way, over the next year or two
Okay.
on those culinary providers because they're a retailer to Weaver Basin.
Okay.
So there will be some pressure, either directly or indirectly, for them to take that off their books. Now, whether that happens, I don't know.
Okay.
But again, all this does, it's still up to the culinary water company. Last time I checked, Gary, we're not providing culinary water.
We're not.
Unless you entered into a contract where they did. So it doesn't make, that clause doesn't make a damn bit of difference.
Wait, did you do something over the weekend?
Yeah. I didn't think about work.
Okay.
Hey, good. That's helpful. Let's see. So, give a second, there was a couple other things in here. Page 28. Section 8.10.4. And to our applicant, we've got one new paragraph in here you guys haven't seen yet that I just barely put in a few minutes ago. So the planning commission, their only request out of this project was to make sure we had some pedestrian bridges, 2 pedestrian bridges going over the river. This added 8.10.4, it adds in the idea that they will build them and that they'll get a compensation credit in terms of impact fees. So we charge a trail impact fee, we'll credit them that trail impact fee. There might be a little bit of legalese in here we would need to work out with the attorneys, but overall, I think we're okay. The additional language that I just added in 8.10.4.2, that language specifies location. One south of 400 south and one north of 400 south. Okay, almost there. Okay, here's our, I think this is the last one. It's page 31, 8.1.7. One more after that. This one, we may need additional discussion with the applicant before we come to you guys with a final recommendation. This is basically a provision that says there are some parts of the county code that they don't want applied to the project, which I totally understand why. The county code has some standards that given the standards that they're implementing through their design code, seem like they're a little irrelevant to apply. But our original concern was the way it was previously written, it's a little bit too nebulous. It's kind of exempting them out of stuff that we definitely don't want to exempt them out of. Almost throwing the baby out with the bathwater on some of that. So they tried to refine that back, but I haven't been able to have any discussion with them on this. I think they need to refine it a little bit more, even more than this. So you'll see that probably a little different in the final agreement. And then, last but not least, provision of services, this is section 10.8 on page 34. So we talked to you guys about how if this project does cost the taxpayers of the county more to operate and maintain, that doesn't help anyone, right? We want to see the project pay for itself, and where the project is asking for different types of streets, maybe different levels of service. Yep. Maybe we need to buy different types of equipment to maintain some of the stuff that they're putting in that they want to be publicly dedicated. We want to make sure that we can get some compensation from master developer, HOA, or someone to be responsive to that differential. So 10.8, what it does is it basically says, if we see the need, if our level of service demand for that project is going up in excess of what it is everywhere else, that we can commission a study, financial study to be done. Comptroller would be heavily involved in it. Gary would be heavily involved in it. And you guys would be involved in that study to determine what additional cost is actually there. And then if we find that delta, we would apply it either to their HOA or to them through the development agreement to compensate for. The only difference between what we had originally asked them for and what they came back with is they would like the county to cover about 50% of the cost of that study. And I think part of that is maybe related to motivation. Everyone here is great. They say if they could keep the staff and everyone who's making the decision now here, it would be incredible. But in the future, there could be a lot of motivation, especially if the relationship turns sour. A lot of motivation on behalf of the county to make things a little more challenging for them. Whereas if we were to bear 50% of that cost, they feel like we have a little bit of stake in having a clean, efficient result in that. So I'm game either way, whatever you guys want to do. I'm not shy about that 50% cost. I don't know how much these studies will cost, though. They could be pretty in-depth. But if you guys are okay with that, making sure we see what the difference is before and then reimbursing them 50% of that.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah, as it relates to that, one of the things they had problems with back in Kentucky were the tree-lined roads. And those trees are popping up sidewalks and things like that. And then they basically said, look, city never gets to it, so we end up doing it. I don't want to become another example of that. I wish Scott Park were in here, but we either need to have a budget where they're somehow that those fees or something are continually going into this so that we can do that in the future, or we need to make sure that we're exempt from that on the interior. So that's something that needs to be covered. That's one more thing that's a big deal.
So one of the things on the exemption of that, given the way that I understand, and Liam, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, the way I understand at least Utah state law is if it's public sidewalk and we see, and there has been a reasonable enough time for the public to take notice that there is something dangerous that has occurred on that sidewalk, at that point, it becomes the public's responsibility, the county's responsibility to fix. If it's a privately owned street, that's a different story. They can go to the HOA to require them to fix it. They would like these roads to be publicly owned and operated, so that does put that onus on us to take care of in the future. This paragraph here will allow us to get additional funds either out of the master developer or out of the HOA to take care of that. So that's item number one. Item number two is if this project, because it has unique needs a special assessment, there's always the opportunity for additional revenue generation. You guys know I've said this before about this project as well as a number of the other ones, the rezones that we've been doing. Our municipal services fund in the future, we will probably need to treat that like a municipality and the amount that we're generating from that fund now is probably not gonna be enough, not just for this project, but for some of the other rezone projects that we're doing, especially with all the trees that we're asking for, the rights of way that we're asking for, the street connectivity, pathway connectivity, operation and maintenance of all that is gonna be more in the future. So this isn't localized to this project, but they have agreed in their development agreement to compensate the difference, at least as far as their project goes. So I think that's a big step in the right direction for this project. I would assume in the future, we probably want to look at something like this for all of our development and development agreements.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree 100%. Really, become part of municipal service, so they need to be singled out, quite since they're kind of the first, that whatever increased cost over what our average cost would be, they should pay for it.
Yep.
I mean, to me, that just makes sense.
Yep.
And I agree with you, we should look at this at any
Mhm,
of our
mhm.
any of our major developments.
Okay.
Really, any development that doesn't kind of fit into our standard
Mhm.
should have the ability or be required to reimburse the rest of the taxpayers because we're spending extra money.
Yep.
And it's not fair to tax everybody else for one development, so.
Okay. That will be a different discussion that we'll have shortly. I'll chat with Scott Park and folks over in the assessor's office to figure out what the best way to do that for new development will be. But in the meantime, as new development agreements come to you for other projects, we do have a paragraph that is somewhat like this written in, provision of services and additional cost. It's not exactly like this because we haven't settled on the best course. But I think this one pushes us closer than some of the other ones do. So we can make some updates to that.
And I'd like to see standard language that we could use for the future. And it's just a matter, let's set the baseline. That Scott Park, I think, can give you the financial blueprint. Let's set that baseline, and then anytime it's, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time.
Yep.
Anytime it exceeds that baseline, they're responsible to pay for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Based upon number of units or, come up with a formula that works.
That sounds good. That is what we have for you guys today. Do you have anything else you wanted to discuss or anything you want us to go back and do some homework on?
Well, I see you've taken some notes and there are a couple things to follow up on. We are out of time, but what I would ask Charlie is, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, but we've made several requests and I know that this had a positive recommendation from the planning commission. I would at least like to see the final draft that we've worked with to just go back for their review.
Okay.
I don't even know if I really want another recommendation, but I just would like them to be aware of the changes we've made.
And
I think that's fair to them. Given
You-
their role in this process.
Okay.
and I would think you could just highlight.
Yeah, just highlight.
Highlight the principles, the changes that, kind of what you've gone through
Yeah.
today.
That's what I think
Okay.
I'd like to see.
Are you guys okay if they see that in work session, just to get their general consensus, or would you rather them formally give you a?
I think a work session, I think, to me, it's just more of information. This is what the commissioners have requested and the changes that have been made.
I think the planning commission, again, if we would have had an opportunity to have them all out there like we did on this type of a project, it would have been really informative for them. With all due respect, it's not like just teleport them over there, but some kind of private, get their feet on the ground down there. It's really, you could see some of my comments is only because I've been out there, right?
Yep.
And those guys are more informed than I am. They would probably pick up more, but that would be just some thoughts.
Commissioner Bolos, I just realized I've got a note to send you over the link to the.
You didn't have to say
decision.
that, Charlie. They haven't even gone through my email.
I have
I
sent
wouldn't
it,
notice.
just don't look until a few minutes from now.
Okay. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for your time.
There should be.
Do that.
Well, I'm waiting.
It'll be before they make a decision.
Yeah, they're gonna put in that.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you guys wander out, we're ready for the next group. They're a little behind, but shove them in.
With,
You did actually.
Thanks.
you got gonna pay
Okay, sorry, I'm sorry, we're a little behind. I try not to
Don't
do
look too
that.
happy. You don't have to, that's not your normal smile.
Okay, we're on item 5, discussion regarding, oh, sorry, we're on number 4, discussion regarding transfer station finances. Sean Wilkinson, John Watson, I don't see Bill here, Scott Park. And we have Liam still here and Jessica and Stephanie. Okay,
I got it,
Sean,
Thank you. So commissioners, we wanted to come talk to you today about the transfer station. John has some numbers that he'll present. But we have seen a decrease in our commercial traffic. And we know in discussions with Republic, they are going over to the new Ogden transfer station. Part of that is a cost issue. They don't have to follow any rules. They can charge whatever they want. We're hearing anywhere between $42 and $50 a ton now. I don't think they can be that low. Republic told me 47 is what they're being charged. We've also seen receipts that show 50, so we're not
I saw a
100%
receipt
sure.
today that's 47.50.
47.50, okay. So as you're aware, we just increased our fee recently, starting July 1st to $52.24. It was $50 previously. We would like to talk to you today about reducing that fee back down to $50. And Scott can talk about the financial impact that would have to the transfer station. But the commercial traffic that we receive is the majority of our traffic. So the cities that come to us, that is significant, but it's not the majority. Right now, typically we've been receiving somewhere between 22 and 24 or.
We've been getting about a number of commercial vehicles.
Yeah, or
We get-
trucks that we're sending out, sorry.
We get on a day about 120 to 130 commercial vehicles, so your side loaders, your front loaders, and your roll-offs. And the last few days, we're down about 50%, down to 70. In fact, I think Thursday was 63
Where's it going?
to that.
It's going to the new Ogden transportation. I believe this is one of the owners online with us right now,
Okay.
so. But commissioners, when we're government, so we go through a process when we set our fees. We don't have the luxury of charging what we want and making special deals. But we do provide a service to the residents of Weber County. We know that the cities understand that. But we can't compete because we follow a different set of rules than the private sector does. So when it comes to what we do for the future, we'll talk about that a little bit. But we've seen the number of trucks that we send out per day drop about 9. So we had, let's say 22, we're down to about 13.
And what period of time is that?
That's in the last 3 weeks. We've seen that since they opened.
Okay,
About 2 weeks ago.
okay,
Yep. So there are some issues that we're dealing with, and that's okay. Private business is great, but as far as the services that the county provides, the rates we charge, and the way we operate, we're going to have to look at some things. We may have to make some changes, do things a little bit differently. So Scott, do you want to talk finances real quick, just based on currently where we're at, and then we can.
So currently where we at, we estimated a $2.24 a ton increase. And that was to help cover the cost of inflation plus the cost of the increase in the disposal.
Yeah.
But we made some money last year, and it was nice. We made a little bit more money. And so I think if we were to hold the rates down, even if we lost $2 a ton, we're still going to be a little bit positive. Now, we wouldn't want to do that forever, but until we can figure out what our cost structure is going to be, what services we're going to offer. If we're going to lose all commercial and we're just going to do the cities, then we may need to rethink what the transfer station looks like and how it operates. We have enough money in our fund balance to do that. We have time. We're not broke, which is nice having this fund balance. So if we want to leave our fee at $50 a year starting July 1, not raise it, just leave it right where it's at. We have time to watch this for 6 months or so and just see what the numbers are doing, see if we're going to get any of the commercial waste back, see if it's all going to stay over there, and then make some decisions as to what does the future of the transfer station look like. and then implement those changes. So we have time to do that. We don't need to raise the fee right now. If we want to hold it steady, we can peek through a little bit of our fund balance. We're still very healthy, and just kind of watch it. What we don't want to do is start to drive more and more people away, because now we're, instead of $50 to $47.50, now we're $52 to $47.50.
So we are meeting with Republic Services next Tuesday. That is not a work session meeting. There will only be one commissioner. Commissioner Frower will be involved in that meeting. So we will have discussions with them. I have spoken with them directly, and they told us, they told me that this it's simply a cost issue. It costs less for them to go there right now. And if we reduce our rates and work with them a little bit, then they may come back. So that's something that we just have to look at and consider as we negotiate. Now, we do have existing contracts with Republic. They haul our waste from the transfer station and dispose of it at their landfill. That contract is up for renewal, or we can put it out for bid. We have to make that decision and actually do that, let them know conservatively by December 1st of this year. So it's up in July 1st next year, yeah. So that's part of the discussion with Republic as well. We also have the contract with Republic for Western Weber County and Uinta Highlands, the residential pickup. That is up for renewal as well in 2026, and that can be part of these discussions as well. So there are some things out there that we can discuss with Republic. But it's not just Republic. We've lost Ace and Robinson. Robinson owns the transfer station, so we anticipate that. One of the issues that we have had as well is Riverdale City has not been bringing their waste to us. So there was an email that was sent to the mayor and Steve Brooks last week. I believe I copied you two on that. Commissioner Harvey was copied on the original.
Did you get a response?
I haven't seen a response. John hasn't yet, but he did receive a response from Steve Brooks, and he said they would take care of that. They are under a contract with us for at least the next 6 months, unless they tell us otherwise, to bring that waste to us. So that should not be going to the Ogden transfer station. So we'll keep working with the cities. We do want to establish a long-term contract with them, and we'll just keep working in that direction. John, what else do you want to bring up?
That's about it. I mean, it's just, what's going on over there at the Ogden transfer station is all the bases, roll-offs, front loaders, all of Robinson's vehicles, including side loaders right now, which is just once a day. Or
Yeah,
once a week that we get them from Riverdale. And then we've lost most of Republic's, I think they were sending their roll-offs over there.
Yeah.
And so
Can I jump in
lost
there?
that's, we're looking at right now, cost wise, about 3 million a year is what we'll be down. And so
No, that's just what we would lose in.
that's just what we'll lose in the Republic, the Ace. And
Yeah, there's an offset there because we're not shipping that amount of waste out to the landfill. So
We're probably, by what we're not gonna be sending out to the landfill, it's, quite a bit. I mean, the net.
Pretty much
Net loss is not that bad.
No, I say the 3 million is revenue, but you have
We're gonna be about the same. We're gonna be.
the
about
$9.
Yeah,
About
yeah,
about
the expense, exactly.
same in tipping fees.
Yeah. Well,
So we would lose a little bit there.
Yeah,
but not the full 3 million.
so the bottom line here is we need to decide what we're gonna do when we grow up.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
exactly.
What
I
service?
agree.
What services are we gonna provide?
Yep,
We offer services that require our costs to be higher.
that's
Yeah,
correct.
well,
That's
and
really the bottom line, right?
That's right.
we've had these conversations before, so I think it's time now to look at, okay, let's nail our cities down with contracts or not. I mean, it's up to them, but we need to know, we can't wait for another Riverdale, excuse the French, to all of a sudden not, be notified
Correct.
and then expect their deliveries out there and they don't come.
Right.
So we need to have that nailed down.
Yes.
And then either they say yes or they say no, but then we can make the decision going forward, okay, what services, and we are providing extra services
Yeah,
out there.
yep.
To the members of Weber County that, okay. Is it worth, obviously, it's gonna take an increase in some fees to do that, or we cut services.
Yep.
It's pretty simple.
Right.
It's not easy, but it's simple.
There you go. So we wanted just to throw those options out. You're right on, Commissioner Frower. Either we cut services, which means we cut employees as well.
Yeah,
We right size the operation depending on
Yeah.
what we want to provide. We could contract it out as well.
we could,
Right,
And whoever comes in pays us a fee
Yeah.
and we let them run the transfer station. And whatever services they provide, they provide.
and now may be a good time to open that discussion.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So that's
That should be one of the options, Madam Chair, to have on the text.
Or, yeah, for sure.
correct.
I'm all for, just holding though. If you feel like we can do that comfortably, Scott.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be fine. We'll wanna revisit it again in 6 months or so. We can't hold it forever, but we can hold it for
Yeah.
a while.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I think I'd like to do.
There's some things too, I think we still need to look forward to. I mean, the one way that will pull us out of this is if we started up our own landfill.
Yeah, so
I mean,
that's,
I hate to be hagging on that all the time, but
Okay,
that's
so-
one way, that's one way.
I need to get more involved with that. And so I agree. I mean, that solves a lot of our
Yes, it does.
monetary issues
Yep.
going forward if we can. So we just need to know whether we can pull that off and then make that decision.
Correct.
Mhm.
We've got a couple groups that are looking to start up trucking companies that would take us away from MBI possibly. Also, we met with one of them last week. So I mean, there's a possibility that we could lower our rates down to a very low point. And especially if it's county owned or 2 counties owned or 3 counties that owned, you're gonna be able to control also what comes in there, then others can bring it in, Ogden can bring theirs in, they're gonna get charged more. And so there's just those options.
Yep,
we
I
have
mean,
to
that's
look
the
at.
opposite of scaling back, right? We can go full on that direction, or
Yeah.
we can scale back
Yeah,
and
so I mean, we can go.
bear services and charge less, so.
bring everything
We need to
down.
explore all of it, but if we can hold for the next 6 months or so, and in that meantime,
Gives us time.
explore those options.
Yeah, and that should give us enough time to negotiate through
Yep.
these contracts
Yep.
as well. So,
Yep.
I'll set a time up to meet with Perry. I think the 2 of you.
Yep.
And I need to go up and visit,
that'd be
get
great.
some boots on the ground.
Yeah.
It's time to do that, because to
Yeah.
me, we just need to either nail that down or then, because we're gonna need to know that information before we can have a good discussion on services.
Correct.
They kind of go hand in hand.
I don't know how you can get rid of some of the services. I don't think you do it. I mean, right now Ogden Transfer Station won't take any limbs or branches or anything, any green waste.
Yeah,
And I can understand why you can't pack that stuff in a truck and haul it off to a landfill.
Mhm.
But you got a lot of that coming in from the county.
Mhm.
And you've also the same thing with your HHW. You stop any program like that, it ends up going back into the storm drains.
no,
So, I mean, there's things you really have to keep, but they're costs, they're
Yep.
not a revenue source.
Is one of the options we can look at, like we talked about this before, a special service district that all the cities are in charge of, and that way they have a vested interest, and maybe
Yeah.
it's just for the household waste, maybe it's no commercial at all, and. I mean, those are different options where we
Yeah.
could look at.
Yeah, let's explore all of them, I think
Yeah.
we need to,
yeah,
or we're gonna be having this conversation again and again.
Correct. So that's the information that we had to present today. I guess the one question that we have right now is, would you like us to hold at 52.24 or go back to $50 a ton?
I'm okay going back to 50.
I'm
Well,
okay with 50.
I'd like to just remember those words. Well, it's a cost thing. If you want to bring the cost down, especially as we're going out to bids and
Correct.
those words, that's almost like they don't care, but it's all about the money. So, boy, would love to keep those relationships, but if if they want to lower their costs.
Yeah.
Just want to remember that July 1st.
And we were told they do have a 1-year contract where what is hauled from the Ogden transfer station goes to their landfill. So,
Yeah. We may want to put it on notice or something that we just considering other options, whether we exercise it or not.
sure. Absolutely,
And you know, it's all about if they wanna sharpen their pencil.
correct.
I think they use those words. I'm just using the same words.
One thing, and I'll just put it out there, they did say that not that this is retribution, but in 2020, we forced them to take a hit, a big hit. And we reduced our rates because we said we're gonna go with someone else. And that hurt them, and they're saying fair is fair. So that, I just want to put that out there.
That Republic?
That's Republic,
Mhm.
so.
We have been getting some numbers too, talking with MBI directly and a few others about what their costs really are, cause right now we're combined. So Republic holds the contract with MBI, so they give us a $34 and some odd cent charge per ton, but we never could figure out what was what. We've found out that from MBI that we're probably somewhere between $15 and $19 a ton is what the trucking company is getting. We're told Republic, they told us the other day that they're getting somewhere between 11 and 12. So if we take the high numbers on that, we're still down about $190 a truck. Or $190 a truck is what is not accounted for. And so that, you know, doesn't seem like a lot, but it adds up to about $3,800 a day
No, that
is what the loss is from
adds up in a lot.
that right there. So we're not really, that's why we're kind of talking about that we want to control the trucking company ourselves. So, and the landfill cost. So that we don't have that question as to what is what.
Does Republic require that? How
No,
come we can't?
no,
No,
contract with
Gordon,
them?
in fact, Gordon said that he would prefer if
We
Republic
did.
wasn't even involved in the transportation. So that's something that we can discuss as part of this contract.
Yeah, I would think so.
So anyways,
All right, a lot on the table.
Yeah, for sure.
So, anything else?
Okay,
All right,
thank you.
thank you.
Well, back on schedule.
We are back on schedule. Well, we're only 1 minute off.
Yeah.
Thank
Well,
you.
you do a great job.
We have them to thank.
Just in future, keep in mind that we're looking for feedstock, organic feedstock for our inland port area. If you guys ever wanna go down that road.
Yeah,
Thanks, Sean.
thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That meeting with public, is that next Tuesday?
It is, yeah. Yep. That should be on your calendar already.
Yeah, it is. I just love talking about garbage.
Almost as much as sewer.
Christy, if you can hear me, you can go ahead and send in the next group.
Complex property tax matter. Sounds complicated.
Complex.
It's complex.
Complex situation.
Well, hello,
Hello.
Hello, Linnell.
how are you guys?
How you doing?
How you doing?
Long time no see.
I am. I have actually been gone a little bit, but first stay that.
Welcome, Gordon.
We're switching attorneys.
Yes.
These are bad for us.
Musical attorneys.
Now we can get away with a lot less.
I don't know, I heard he's the tough one.
Really? Is he tough?
Stickler.
I don't know.
I think it depends on the circumstance.
Oh, you were the stickler. Are we waiting for anyone else? I see Jared on here and Bahi.
Yeah, Bahi can't make it, but Jared, I think he was planning to be here, but it's okay, we can start.
Okay, well, let me just announce the agenda item. Discussion regarding complex property tax matter. We have Ricky Hatch, Portland Erickson, Linnell Jensen, and hopefully Jared Preisler will be coming in.
Hey, and this could involve very much will involve the discussion of character and competency of an individual who's not a county employee. Can we do it with a closed session, or does it?
I looked into that earlier. It doesn't say it has to be an employee. It just says an individual. And it can also include physical and mental health of an individual, and in this case, as was mentioned, the consensus is that these issues do relate to that. So
So we're okay to go to closed session.
if you choose to, yes.
Is that your recommendation?
I think it would be.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion, commissioners.
Motion to go into closed session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Another
Doesn't matter what it is. It has two wheels, you don't get on the back.
Okay, commissioners,
Motion to leave the closed session, go back into the work session.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
My motion carries. We are just coming out of a closed session wherein we discussed the character, competence, and mental health of individuals. We're now back in our public meeting to our 7th agenda item. Thank you.
waiting on?
Our LMSA.
Is this Stephanie?
This is LMSA,
LMSA.
Stephanie.
I think you have enough seats for who's out here.
Wow, that bunch. Oh, come on in. Get ready for this.
I know. We're not muted. I know what you're gonna say. Welcome. Sorry for the delay.
That last suggestion could come out of that department.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Well, at the end of the day, the sheriff's budget's, take it out of here.
Yeah. Well.
Which is only fair way.
Well, look at it. Sorry for the delay. I'm sorry if I already said that in your previous work session, did I?
No, I think we're the reason for the delay.
Oh, okay.
I started the last one on time.
Item 7, discussion regarding Little Mountain Sewer District services for residential projects. Residential development projects in the West Weaver area. We have Felix, Navarino, Red Grover, Sean Wilkinson, Charlie York, Gary Myers, Stephanie Russell, Ashton Tuckett, Pat Burns. We'll start with Felix.
Yes.
You're first.
Yes, good afternoon, commissioners. We appreciate the time that we can discuss this topic. We have the developer with us, and we also, it's good to see that the representative from Little Mountain Sewer, Stephanie Russell, is here too. And so this meeting was actually requested by the developer and his party to discuss some of the things that they've been working on recently. Maybe share some information they have as far as plans for connection to sewer to resolve some of the issues that they have with a couple of developments, particularly there's Mibus rezone. It's currently under in the works right now. And then there's a subdivision application out there, Western Weaver, it's called Longhorn Estates. And then a rezone project called West Creek. And so those are kind of on hold for the time being, but I think that, what we could primarily cover in this amount of time is really some of the things the developer has been working on to overcome some of these, the complex issues with sewer, particularly out there in Western Weaver.
Okay. So who's next?
Yeah.
Pat,
Do
Stephanie?
you want an update on where LMSA is? Is that helpful first, or do you want that later?
I think that'd be helpful.
Helpful?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, as of last Wednesday, LMSA, we're meeting tomorrow, but as of last Wednesday, this is where we're at with our projects. So currently, the 5900 lift and line that goes back to Central Weaver Sewer, that is currently under, the jurisdiction of Central Weaver Sewer. They would be the owners and operators. That's how it is set up legally. The Promontory Commerce Center PAD is building it and funding it, and they're funding it with assistance from the Utah Inland Port and assistance from LMSA through the federal ARPA dollars that we got from the state. So that's all tied up into a contract with Division of Water Quality. And there's contracts between the Promontory PID and Central Weaver to take the infrastructure once it's created, and then there's contracts between Weaver County and Promontory PID to be the pass-through funding mechanism to access that $4.5 million that's available for them to begin the construction of that. As of last Wednesday, I spoke with Daniel Stevens and Dallin Curtin from Promontory PID. We've got two issues we need to tidy up with the county and the state before they can access that funding. Spoke with Gary, where's Gary? Oh,
Right here.
there, sorry. can't see. Spoke with Gary just a minute ago, and Lauren, those are the two issues we're gonna be tidying up in the next couple weeks. And then, the Promontory, PID is able to go out to bid for that project. It's designed, it's ready to go out to bid. The bid will go out in, probably late July, maybe early August is what we're looking at from a funding standpoint. And then construction will begin in August. So that piece will be moving. The other piece that has to happen in order for anyone to connect into that lift station in line and for them to get well served, which is probably what Felix is gonna be talking about in a little bit, from Little Mountain Service Area. If you recall, you guys drafted a resolution and approved a resolution last year that anything west of the river was not gonna be taken on by the county. So LMSA then followed up with a resolution saying that they would take on any lines, new lines west of the river as they were being developed. So LMSA, as soon as we can solidify an agreement with Central Weaver Sewer to take the effluent that we would be transporting, we have to go into a service agreement, very similar to a municipal service agreement. As soon as we can do that, we're in a position where we can start issuing will serve letters. And I'm on the agenda for the August for the August Central Weaver Sewer meeting to begin that process of creating that contract. So once that contract is signed, once Promontory Commerce Center has begun their build process, then LMSA is in a position to issue will serve letters for projects west of the river for connectivity. There's some criteria, and Pat and I've talked about that, you'll have to go to the board and go through our process of doing a design review, a connection agreement, a service agreement, and all of that, and annexing into the district. So one of the other caveats with connecting out in the West River corridor is they will not only have to annex into LMSA's service area, they also have to annex into Central Weaver service area as well. So there's 2 annexations that have to happen to any of the properties west of the river that want to connect into 5900. Any questions? I know it's super confusing, but I've tried to keep on top of this with you guys, sending you emails about the project updates and where we're at. And this is where we're at this point.
So. Thank you, Madam Chair. The earliest that Promontory can get started on that lift station would be the end of August. That'd be the earliest.
The earliest.
Because by the time they bid and get everybody back and then they get mobilization, we're looking really probably end of August, first part of September.
Yeah, they have a very limited time period because those are
Okay.
ARPA funds and that project has to be reimbursed, fully completed, reimbursed by May of 2026.
So we know the completion time, but the start time.
Yeah.
Then the next piece of that is by the time everything's done with LMSA, you're gonna be on the agenda with Central Weaver in August, providing they make a decision.
Yeah, it may not be, it may be 1 or 2 meetings that I have to.
So September, October, so we're looking September, October, really. I mean, to be a fair timeline, that's kind of what I'm hearing you say without saying.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
But all of the wheels are in motion.
That's as early as we can hope.
I mean, as early as you could hope for a will serve would probably be early September. For LMSA, because we just need to have that contract put into place. And then we're able to issue will serves, because we have someone that would take our effluent.
You're saying the contract with
Central Weaver.
Central Weaver?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm
Sure.
assuming it's gonna take at least 1 meeting, if not 2.
Okay. Okay,
Well, thank you. Yeah, and I can speak a little bit to the requirement for will serve letters. So typically with a subdivision, we want to make sure that we have those will serve letters those will serve letters, it's spelled out very clearly exactly what the developer needs to do to get that sewer service in place. And a little bit of direction from LMSA, regarding, will serve letters from both Central Weaver Sewer and LMSA is required in this circumstance because of its unique nature. So that's very clear. That's something that we're gonna make sure that the developer follows through with.
Okay, Felix, kind of piggybacking on that really quick, I did speak with Kevin Hall last week about them providing any type of will serve west of the river right now for any new construction, and he said that it's a little premature until Central Weaver and LMSA enter into that agreement. They don't feel comfortable doing annexations and will serves right now. But as soon as that, same thing, as soon as that's tied up, he said they would feel comfortable starting that annexation and will serve processes.
Okay.
Yeah, and those will serve letters are also very helpful for, giving some background information for the planning commission when they're deciding on making recommendations for rezones, things like that. So we're definitely, staff is carefully looking at those as well.
So can I give you a little inside information?
Yeah.
So Stephanie's been to Central Weaver. Full disclosure, I sit on the board out there. This is not the first time we've heard about it. I think based upon our previous meeting, I'm talking offline with Kevin Hall. I'm fairly confident the board will approve the agreement between LMSA and Central Weaver. Central Weaver will be in the treatment business, which is the business they want to be in. LMSA will be in the collection business. So we had that discussion, treat LMSA just like we do in a municipality. North Ogden City has an agreement for collection. Basically, they're responsible for the lines. Central Weaver takes effluent. LMSA will be treated just like a municipality. That agreement takes place. That agreement obviously will be dependent upon the contract, which I've said all along, for the lift station. Once we know the lift station is a reality, then those two agreements can come into play. That happens. So again, I don't think it's a matter of if, it's a matter of when the money's in place for the lift station. So that's gonna happen. It's unfortunate it's taken this long. No, none of us expected, but it's fairly complicated. And I think again, we voted that LMSA, well, basically we said that it's not right for Weber County to be in the sewer business.
Yep.
Now, because of that vote, it's taken a little time to put in place the collection, but I still think it was the right decision. So.
Well, even if you guys had opted to take lines west of the Weaver, the lift station doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't be able to issue will serves either.
No,
because the infrastructure
we'd
doesn't.
still be back,
exist.
so I'm confident it will take place. It's just a matter of whether it's August 1, September 1.
Mhm.
But I'm confident Central Weaver is on the same page with LMSA being the collection. They'll do the treatment, the lift station goes in, and now you have your will serve letters. So to me, that's how it plays out.
And does that work for your department when
Yeah.
would that be acceptable?
Yeah,
Even though the infrastructure is not built,
yeah, we just gotta wait.
that we have
till
the
get-
contracts in place?
Yeah, if we have the contracts and the letters in place, that's what's important. For will serves.
Yeah, and then on a side note, we're gonna be meeting with Pat and his team on Wednesday to talk about bridging a gap between his development project and the new lift station. So we're gonna be kind of getting the ball rolling on that for collection. And then I've got a meeting scheduled with the Inland Port. We'll be coming to you a little bit later, in July to talk about creating a PID. The Inland Port will create a PID that Weber County will actually sit on that board and manage. And they will be funding the rest of the line from, to help to provide that conveyance out to 9350. So that's coming, that's pending, but you will get some information about that coming up soon. So that we'll have a functioning system out there in the next couple of years that can handle very large volumes. And we'll have a great partnership. We've been working with Central Weaver all in this entire time to make sure that they feel comfortable about taking that effluent, that large amount of effluent that we're gonna be sending down 12th Street. And we've made some promises to Gary about the road. One of the things we're looking at doing also with that PID, just while I brought it up, is building that bridge over the railroad so that the development can connect. That's another requirement that the county has for egress. And then also expanding the gas lines while we have the road open and making sure we have the right conduit in for fiber so that we don't tear Barry's road up 5 times.
Yeah.
So
It'd be appropriate to put any of that in the shoulder. And if it is, could
absolutely,
we pave the top of it and put a striped path on it?
absolutely, 100%. That we can absolutely talk about that when we do the design.
That would be a preferred location for the
fiber stuff.
Great,
is in the
yeah,
folder.
and you,
Oh,
and we
that's
would have, and
impacted
county would have
cities.
representation on that stakeholder team.
Right.
Anyway, just a little update on the rest of the infrastructure.
Good. Thank you. Anything else, Felix?
That's it from me.
Yeah, I have, so with all that information given, this is what I wanna come talk to you guys about is I'm in limbo and been stuck in limbo for over a year and a half on one of my projects. So what I would like to ask is that we can move forward with filing up the rezones on MIBUS. So I have it passed through planning commission is waiting to get presented to you guys for a rezone. And then go through all the rezone process on West Creek, because, so I would rather not wait until all of the will serve letters and stuff are able to come in October or whatever that is, and then I start this process, it takes another 3 or 4 months before I could ever get through preliminary and final and then start putting this stuff in. What I'm asking is, can I continue with the rezones and finalize all that stuff so that I can be right where I need to go to the next phase? And that's, they've done my construction drawings, they've approved everything, stuff is good, all my subdivisions are ready to go. But right now, I can't go through that next process because they're saying I have to have a will serve letter from LMSA. We all know it's coming in, but I have to have those approvals on those 3 subdivisions because I'm putting the IFD together. It's already done, it's approved, it's ready to go. I can't take it to market till I have those approvals. That IFD is what we're gonna use to put that 12th Street, that line in the 12th Street. And, or 900 South, whatever it is. But all that, I mean, we're gonna oversize it dramatically for what I need to what we're putting in, but the IFD is gonna pay for that. And I don't mind doing that and putting it in, and we've worked all that out, and Steph and I have another meeting Wednesday to finalize and figure that out. But in order to get my IFD approved, they won't approve it with, oh, I promise that the commissioners will approve it once I have this or once I have that. So it would be months down the road before I can finish that up. So what I'm asking is, I do have, Stephanie, I don't mean to change what you said, but Kevin Hall did give me a will serve letter. I have a will serve letter from Kevin Hall. So he said, and I talked to him last week, talked about being annexed in.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, he only talked to me about the annexation.
yeah, and the annexation said, we're ready to annex you in, they have all my plats, it's 100% ready to go, but he said, hold off on the annexation. I said, I don't have to have the annexation, because the ability to will serve says, and I have to annex before final plat. That's 100% fine with me. I am already annexed into LMSA. And so that's already been done. So all I'm asking is LMSA doesn't have the ability to give me the final will serve, but I'm not asking to actually connect the pipe. I'm just asking to go through all of the approval process for rezone to preliminary and get ready for final plat. Now, Longhorn is already there. I would ask if I could put the construction in. I don't have to. It'd be nice to start doing it, but I'm not gonna push that ball very hard up the hill. I'll ask and you guys can tell me no. I'm okay with that. But I would at least like to take the next 2 subdivisions to preliminary so that I can get my IFD approved. So that's my big ask right now, is I bought them, I own them. I just would like to take it through preliminary so I can get the IFD done, finalized, and then the second we have the will serve letters, we can start putting the infrastructure at the same time Black Pine starts. So that would be my ask, is allow me to continue with the process to get it through preliminary.
Commissioner Ford?
What are you asking me?
I know you have an opinion.
Yeah, I know I'm probably the one responsible for holding up, because I know what your opinion is, Madam Chair. I would say this, with what I see and know now with the agreement between LMSA and Central Weaver, what's gonna take place, I'm probably okay with that. Okay. But I may get outvoted.
Commissioner Harvey?
I hate going out of sequence here. What would our staff recommend?
So for rezone, it's not required to have a will serve. It's just a letter of service, intent to serve, at the rezone stage. That will serve doesn't come into play until we get to the subdivision.
But Pat, are you asking for a preliminary subdivision approval?
Well,
Rezone.
through the rezone.
Hold on, he's shaking his head, yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's just been a lot, I mean, they all build so much upon themselves. So Longhorn, and I think everybody knows Longhorn, I mean, I've got some little maps, I'm not really good for anything but paper. But Longhorn is the most westerly piece of the three. So Longhorn connects to Vaquero, which is good or bad, depending on where you look at. And then we got Mybos that connects it up, and then Longhorn is right next to the Black Pine Lift Station.
No, Westgate.
Or sorry, West Creek is right by it. So where it all builds upon each other is that the construction plans for Longhorn to service it with every utility, including sewer, is done. So we have conveyance plans all the way to the Black Pine Lift Station. And so even though it goes through Mybus, that's not all the way there, but we had to design it because it had to get there. And so it's very important that I think we look at that they have to build upon each other. And then get the cart rolling from our side, from the planning and engineering side, it's months. And so that's why we would appreciate to be able to get it moving now. So that it's been about a year since we've been stalled. And we get it and we appreciate, we understand, and I completely agree with the county. The county should not be in the sewer business. Let it to LMSA to convey the sewer, the effluent to Central Weaver. Let Central Weaver do their job. I get it. But we're just trying to ask, what can we do to expeditiously move this forward? This project and maybe others that are just maybe sitting idle as we try to figure this out.
So tomorrow LMSA is meeting and we're gonna have this discussion with them about Pat's IFD. Putting in the section of pipe between 6,900 and 5,900, and that would connect, that's exactly what you're talking about.
Correct.
That would connect, it's designed, if LMSA says yes to that, then they would just have to go through their, the LMSA connection and approval process, which would mean meeting with our engineer and getting a sign off on those plans. So I'm fairly certain that would be a yes vote. If they decide to take a vote on it tomorrow, I'm fairly certain that they will say yes to that. But I don't want to speak on behalf of the board, other than just my gut feeling.
Stephanie, if they do, then would you be comfortable with us?
Yes, because it would be, they would work in conjunction, Pat's IFD would work in conjunction with the Promontory PID. And then ultimately, LMSA would like to receive the infrastructure from the Promontory PID. It's just, right now it's going to Central Weaver, but there would still be that connection with Central Weaver, the Promontory PID, Pat's IFD, your design, and LMSA's requirements for that connection. So there's a lot of moving parts, but I think that at this point, we're all kind of in concert with each other and having the same conversations.
So going back to. I didn't hear an answer from you, Rick. You went through a lot of,
You didn't get one.
yeah.
Yeah, so are we asking for a rezone or a preliminary subdivision?
Both. So I'm asking to go through the rezone, but then I have to also provide the IFD with the preliminary plat approval.
Cause I'm comfortable with what everyone said for the rezone. But the preliminary subdivision, are we meeting the ordinance, Felix?
Yeah, well, not completely, simply because we don't have a complete will serve letter for subdivision, and that's standard with subdivision, because that's really, you're getting down to installation and.
I got it.
Please, yes.
And I'm gun shy, so you can understand my position. I'm comfortable with Rick's answer on the rezone, but not the other, because I want to follow the law.
Yeah.
However, what's got me concerned, so that you both can hear right directly from me, is, and we don't have legal representation in the room, which I find is, we've had it all day long, except for when we need them right now. I'm familiar with that other project that was a piece of crap. I've still got wounds that.
Yeah.
I'm on that other one, where with all due respect, whether you'd sue us or not, doesn't matter. We've been in that position before. this comes out of the box, and we do one for one, and we set a precedence. I'm gun shy about that, so, Madam Chair, that's where I am.
Yeah, I'm in the same place. I take Rick's recommendation. And
And if that helps.
follow the ordinance. If just, we have to follow the ordinance.
And we have to follow the state statute.
If it helps at all to understand, we've got one developer in the Ogden Valley that got their IFD approved with just a development agreement and rezone approval. So it might be possible they don't need a preliminary. plat.
Recently?
Yeah.
The only
And I just wanna
IFD that I'm aware
clarify.
of.
Yeah.
I'm in favor of the rezone. I'm not in favor of taking it past that stage, but I think that the rezone is probably a fair request.
I agree.
Yeah.
And then, and again, then if it doesn't work out, then that's his nickel, not ours. So I think we wanna be clear on
Yeah.
that, is that, it doesn't go to plat stage or anyplace else until everything else, the will serve at that point in time, we'll know.
Yeah, once we get the contracts, we can probably get that figured out pretty quick.
So
I think they'll kind of come together all down there.
Yeah.
But
that would be-
if he as developer is willing to take the risk, that he's gonna spend money, you know, on the rezone and going through that it may, you know, let's say everything falls apart, LMSA, San Weaver go away, you've just spent money you're not gonna get back.
Correct,
Yeah.
and it's only good for a year, 2 years? How long is the rezone good for without action?
If there's a development agreement, it's good for as long as the development agreement term.
That's not, that didn't answer his question. How long if he doesn't get the development agreement? How long is that rezone good for before the development agreement?
I would not recommend approving the rezone without the
Without the
development.
Yeah.
agreement.
So they go hand in hand.
To me, that makes sense.
So Pat, we already have several will serve letters from LMSA. Do we have one on my list already?
We have one going west.
West, not east.
So west, when we did the, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we can issue will serve west, we just can't issue will serve east. Until we have an agreement with Central Cooper.
Okay, I think we have a consensus.
Yeah, if that, I appreciate that, thank you guys, that would be a really good, way to just get that next step rolling and go. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't, you know more about.
Okay, yeah, do, please, yeah.
That'd be helpful.
That's tomorrow, right?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I need you to settle down.
Going mild.
All right, we'll see y'all Wednesday. Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you guys have a good one.
Two things. for you.
Okay,
All right.
our next item, we're
Wow.
almost there.
Gee, this has been a long one.
Boy, I'll tell you what, you sure know how to put on a party. Wow.
Because you guys
Thank
are
you,
on
Rick.
next week. That's why.
Yeah, well, I wish you were joining us. We wish you were joining us.
Answer them all.
Okay.
Your text.
We didn't do
I
that.
kind of did
Yeah.
that. That was my.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So I think.
All right. Let's see, our number 8 is a discussion regarding Ogden Valley Wayfinding signage agreement extension.
That's gotta be easy.
Stephanie, Russell, Ashland, Tuckett, Sean Wilkinson, plus some extras. Tammy, this is yours.
Yes, so we, as you recall, we requested an extension from the state last year. I think just weather and projects kind of drew out the timeline. And the same thing happened this year. The roads department was gonna help us get these installed in the spring and they got put on the big transfer station project. And we are right up against a deadline. And so the state has indicated that they are happy to grant us a request until September 30th, which is why this is before you.
Commissioner Bowles, this is for grant funding for
Okay.
WAVE that we had gotten a couple years ago.
Mhm. Yeah.
We're aware of that situation.
So you're just asking our permission to ask for an extension.
Yes, we've asked for an extension, but before we sign anything.
Do you like our permission for that?
Yes, okay. Yeah, that's tomorrow. We just want to make sure you're aware of what's happening and make sure you're okay with it.
We're gonna have you sign.
And so if you're not okay, we'll take it off. I am going out with operations in the roads department this week to go mark the sites. So we're anticipating getting these signs installed in the next few weeks. I think the foundations usually take a couple weeks to cure. And then the roads department will come in and attach all
Put
the
the signs.
signs.
So, can I ask a question?
Mhm.
Is this on the smaller wayfinding?
Yes,
The big ones are already up.
Yeah,
Right.
no more.
this is
big-
just the trails.
They're beautiful. And is this gonna make Jeff Boyd come off the?
No, but the Huntsville
might-
mayor's happy with them.
I wouldn't
So-
think so on
I mean,
the trails.
He couldn't get off that for 2 months last time about how bad they were, he wanted them taken down.
Right.
Those were the big ones.
Well, but.
So we heard you, Jeff. We made them smaller.
Yeah. But what I'm afraid of is now we'll want the big ones taken down for sure. Anyway, just a warning.
Are you okay
They're-
with?
Some of them are vehicle, aren't they?
Oh, yeah, no, it's,
Okay.
that's
The
just
two
do
pole ones. Do we have two pole ones?
Absolutely.
We support your request.
just do
Okay, it'll be on the agenda tomorrow.
Thank you.
8 of them are,
Thank
but
you.
the rest
it.
are.
You're taking that call.
Tell me once the project over.
Please.
Yeah, no kidding.
Forward him to me.
Yeah, we're supportive, all three of us. You missed that.
So, Commissioner, there are a few that are the smaller,
Okay.
road signs, but they're not as big ones. They're the smaller ones. that Don't have the two poles, isn't just one, and then.
We have a few with 2 poles. Of the 28 signs that are going up, 6 or 7 of them are vehicular, but they're much smaller.
Okay, well, if nothing else, that'll give plenty of opportunity for some of our favorite candidates running for city office to have that discussion
Opinion and-
about why they should be in and not commissioners. Yeah, okay.
Second with the comment.
Yeah.
Was that a motion? Were we taking action?
I gotta tell you, I love those signs. I was
They're
up there
good.
this morning. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
They're really good. They're sized right. You can see them if you're a guest from this county. They're very well done.
Oh.
They're really, really nice. Thank you.
And you guys know the size is based off of vehicle speed. of
Yeah.
the roads.
Yeah, no,
The roads that were
it
put.
doesn't matter. They're too big.
Yeah, that's right. The roads we're putting these ones up on are county roads, less speed, so they're all smaller because of
I'm
that.
just warning you, you're gonna get calls from a few individuals. Just be prepared.
I'm okay with that. I've gotten calls before.
Send them my
One
way.
or two.
1 or 2. I will tell you that we've got a different mayor in Huntsville since the approval of these and since the installation of the ones that we've got in so far. And I reached out to him and sent him over what we were gonna be installing, which we've got 4 signs going in the incorporated Huntsville town.
Oh,
And then images, and he was very happy with how they looked and grateful to be. So
he's a reasonable person.
Good.
he seems to be.
Too bad they didn't reasonably move that line a little further east when they incorporated Huntsville.
No, item 9. Thank you.
Catherine.
Looking for a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Oh,